I've been seeing, well, I've had 4 clients, but I've done some things in group settings also, which have been really super great. It's
Good.
it's been nice. It's been a lot of fun to kind of weave those things into my teacher trainings and some of my boot camps. I feel like it goes so well with a lot of the yoga philosophy too, when we're able
Right.
to get the nervous system dialed down and then people are just so available, you know.
It's so true. I mean, it really does fit together well, the yoga and hypnotherapy, meditation, all of that.
Mhm.
Excellent. Good. Well, thank you for coming on and playing with me today on Zoom.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. This is awesome. I'm so excited uh,
Yeah.
to do this. I feel like, I'm just so much in the infancy of what I'm doing, and I admire you so much. You're so eloquent with the way that you help people, and I want that.
I'm sure you provide that for your people too. So we did have some emails about questions that you had about clients. What questions do you have that I could answer today?
I think my biggest ones, I worked with somebody who was very analytical, and um, I think what finally kind of cracked her open was the analytical imp, which was really great. And so we did that with our second session together. And that kind of got the ball rolling. And then all of a sudden she became very visual, which was really cool. But it just kind of caught me off guard because I was like, oh, whoa, okay, we're changing directions, you know?
Right.
Um,
So
so,
cool.
yeah, it was really great. And then after we did that, then the last session we hit another thing where she went back to being very analytical, and there was a lot of I don't know. And inside of me, I want to help her. So the I don't know sends me to the thing where I'm like, okay, I have to keep this client centered, but I'm not exactly sure where to go next because all I keep getting is I don't know. I don't know. And I'm trying to guide her through some different more more analytical things to kind of get her back on track with that. But it got kind of weird, felt the
Yeah.
transition felt really sticky, I think.
Oh, okay. Transition from, you
Just
mean,
from where we were to another technique it felt like somebody had just slammed on the brakes, and I kept getting I don't know. And so I was like, okay, I need to take her, so we need to go somewhere.
right.
And I think what she didn't really know exactly what I figured I should give you a little bit of background on this particular client.
Okay.
She didn't know exactly what she needed. She's going through a divorce. Her ex-husband ended up being somebody that she didn't really think he was. And there are a lot of things that came up around that for her. So when she came to me, she didn't know exactly what she needed. It was more like, where's my place, some comfort, but there was never anything very specific. So what has come up is this quality of comfort has come up several times in her sessions, and confidence, like being really self-assured. So these are the things now that I'm working on with her.
Okay.
And we did the role model technique, which worked really well. I took her, she met an older version of herself as a role model.
Okay.
And um, then we did taking the place of the role model and then stepping out and then stepping back into the role model again.
Good.
And then after that, I wasn't sure exactly where to go. If anchoring would have been better, if I don't secondary gains, maybe. I don't know. It just felt kind of stuck.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to start at the top of the questions that you had, and then we'll kind of expand on this part. So when they're analytical, I'm glad the analytical imp worked for you. You know, that is really a great way to do it. You can also, and it sort of fits in with the analytical imp, but you can also do it as secondary gains and parts therapy. What's the benefit of being so analytical and what's the detriment, and doing it that way? I like, you know, the analytical imp is just a nice little kind of side thing that's really fun, and it tends to work really well. So when she went into the I don't know, I've had clients do that too. And, you know, if it's, you know, in a normal question, like, you know, who was it that walked in the room, or where were you in that past life or something, I don't know. Okay, that's fine. But if that's the pattern, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. What I do is, you know, there's a few techniques that we can do to handle that. One is, I'll say, if you did know, what would it be?
Oh.
And sometimes that's all it takes. Well, if I did know, you know, and then I have a little story, because I have a client who would do that to me all the time. I don't know, I don't know. And then one day we were working and she was complaining because her son, you know, every time she would ask him a question, he would say, I don't know. You know, did you do your homework? Or I don't know, whatever these questions are, he would say, I don't know. And I said, interesting. Do you think he learned it from you? And she was like, oh, you know, is he being just like his mother? And so with her, well, we had already discussed the I don't know. So it wasn't like I was just pulling that out and leading her. I was really segueing that or tying it back to conversations she and I had had about not saying, you know, about the I don't know. And in one session, I told her, okay, so for the rest of the session, I don't know is not a legal response. You can't say that. All right. You can say anything else, but you can't say you don't know. And so, you know, she would think about it longer. And, you know, in her case, I think a lot of it, well, in anybody's case, it could be that knowing things was dangerous, you know, or maybe you'd be teased, oh, you're just a know-it-all, or, you know, or maybe a parent that would suppress that of, you know, if you knew the answers, or would ridicule if you came up with an answer and it wasn't right, you know, oh, that's stupid. Why would you think that? Right. And so then it's like, okay, I'm never going to suggest something that I know. So there's a lot of baggage that can come with the I don't know. And it can be a way of just not using the energy to think about it longer. You know, it's easier just to say, I don't know, you know, than it is to say, wow, I really do have to think about that. Let's see, what would I do in this case? Or what is the answer to that question? So saying I don't know is just, you know, an easy out. And so with my client, I just said, okay, that is not an acceptable answer for the rest of this session. So, you know, and then we would do it and she would just be real quiet, and then she would come up with a real answer. So, but you know, I can be a little tough and direct with my clients. I don't know if you do that.
I could probably do more of that. And
Yeah.
like you, I feel like, you know, the first I don't know comes out, and then the second one comes out, and then it becomes a habit. Then it's just a habit. Like it's the easiest thing just to say, I don't know.
Right, exactly. You know, what is your safe space like? I don't know. You know, what's your empowerment symbol? I don't know. Yeah, it's just like, okay, you're going to have to work a little harder, right? Because otherwise they're wasting their time too. So you're really doing them a favor by calling them out on this. But it was interesting with this one client, because not only did she complain that her son always told her, I don't know, and it was such a frustrating answer. And then I brought it back to her behavior. And then in another session, her ex-husband, the child's father, she said, well, every time I talk to him, he says he doesn't know. And it was like, oh my God, there's a whole family of of people who that's their response to everything. When you coming over? I don't know. When you picking up your son? I don't know. What did he have for dinner? I don't know. You know, it's just easier than actually having an answer. But it was really interesting that they had formulated this pattern within the family of having that as the answer. So you're really going to do them a good service in having them you know, give an answer. And I told her it was legal for her if she wanted to say, I need to think about that longer.
Mm.
You know, she could come up with something else. You know, it's not that you know, maybe you don't know, but maybe you just don't know right now, you know. So, well, let me think a little longer on that, or I need to consider that, or something like that. But I don't know was not an answer. So you could give her, you know, you could give your clients some other ways of responding to that that are more thoughtful, or you know, or take the time to think about it now and figure that out. Yeah. So hopefully
So that
that
kind of
helps.
gives them like permission, because maybe they're feeling urgent with coming up with something, and that just kind of gives them that permission to have the time to sit
Right.
with.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, I try not to attack them with my response to that, but more like, you know, I noticed that on, you know, many of the questions I've asked you, you respond with, I don't know. And I'm curious about that. Can you tell me a little bit more about why so many of the answers are that you don't know? And of course, they'll say, I don't know. Right. See, you proved my point. There you go again. So, you know, and then you could do the secondary gains. What's the benefit of saying I don't know to all these questions?
Mm,
You know, put their feet to the fire, because they really, you know, so much of what we talk about or think about is just unconscious. We're just not present.
mhm.
Right. And so I don't know, you know, it's just, I could be daydreaming somewhere else and you ask me a question, "Oh, I don't know." And then, you know, because really I just wasn't paying attention to what your question was, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, any other, you know, just like I said, just not taking the energy for it. So, yeah. So, you know, gently pointing that out to them and exploring why that's happening.
Mhm.
So, then you had the question about segueing out of role model with your client. So was the role model at the beginning of the session or at the end?
It was towards the end. So we did induction. Uh, deepening was, the sessions are starting to blend together. I think we did the hallway with
Uh-huh.
with the doors for deepening, and then we did safe space, sacred healing space. And that was, wow, that was crazy, because she was so analytical. And then all of a sudden it's like this huge visual like curve. And I was like, oh, good, we're going to be, you know, then that kind of like lifted my expectations that it was going to be like the last session, you know, where I felt like we really got some traction with her, and, you know, things came up that we could work with. And then, you know, in her safe space, we had this very much, I don't know. And then I said, well, where do you think you need to go next? And she said, I need to leave. And it was like a very quick like evacuation from the safe space.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And then yeah, and then the sacred healing space, so the safe space was like totally opposite from the sacred healing space. It was like the beach in a lighthouse was the safe space, and then suddenly sacred healing space was like out in the woods down a path.
Yeah, it can be. It really can be that different. Yeah, I've had that too. Sometimes it's just, you know, I'm on the beach and now I'm in kind of a cave off of the beach, you know, like they
Mhm.
just move a little bit, but sometimes it's very radically different. That's true. Yeah.
Once she was there, I felt like that was the appropriate place for her to meet her role model. So
Yeah,
we,
I do it there oftentimes.
okay.
Okay, good. So then she does the role model and she goes in and out and you've explored what now the traits that she can carry. Is she going to stay in the role model, or do you bring her out and you're going to do therapy?
She's going to stay in the role model.
Okay. Okay. So one of the things I do is when it's at the beginning of the session, I'm using role model, and what you did is not wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong, but a different way to approach it, or an additional way to approach it would be when you use the role model at the beginning of the session, then you're really looking at what it is that they need, like where do they want to be? So it really gives you some clear ideas of where you're going to take the client eventually, right? Either in this session or future sessions. So where they want to be, the characteristics. And then I use it also for a conversation of what will, if the new you could talk to the former you, what would you say to her that would help her to arrive here in this space? Well, you need to have more courage, or you need to be more decisive, or better boundaries, or, whatever that is, you need to heal from your abuse. So now you know what really needs to happen for them to achieve the goal that they're aiming for. What I tend to do, and I'm not going to say it's 100%, but what I tend to do when it's at the beginning is I take them back into their former self and I work on them there now. Now I know what I need to do. We need to do inner child. We need to do past life regression, whatever that is. And I bring them back into the former self so we can do the therapy. And then at the end, I would put them back in the role model and have them lead as the new one, right?
Okay.
Doesn't have to happen, but and again, the whole thing was something I made up in the beginning anyway, this whole protocol of using it. So I'm not saying, well, this is the only way to do it, because I just made it up and you can make it up any way you want to, right? But what my thinking was if they're already in that new one, then maybe from that perspective, they've already done this healing therapy, right? Or they've already made the changes. And sometimes that's all it takes is for them to alter their perspective. And there isn't a whole lot of healing that has to happen. Then you can leave them in that new version. But I figured, when I started doing this, I thought, well, I better put them back in there where they are still in pain or suffering or blocked or whatever's going on. And then we'll work on that with the idea of at the end, we'll get back in there again because we've already done the work. And so whatever the gap is between the new and the old, we come back into the old, and then whatever therapy is really bringing them back there. So it's really solid when you put them in at the end. But to answer your question, if you've done the role model and they're in the new role model, see, it makes it a little more awkward, because then do you do therapy on the new one? Because they've already fixed it, right? So if you're going to stay in the new one, then you could still do future pacing, because usually after role model, I like to use the future pacing. If you're going to continue in this version each and every moment of the future, how is the rest of today going to be? How is the next week, the next month, 3 months? And so you future pace. Yeah, I mean, it's not quite as graceful if you still have, 35 minutes to work and you're kind of there now. So that would all really be better at the end. It's not like, oh my God, you made such a big mistake and you've really messed up your client. It's not like that at all. Not at all. But it just makes it a little more awkward to then segue to that next technique. But you could, now that you're in your new version, I would like for you to sit, find a place here in the sacred healing space to begin an even deeper meditation. And as you go deeper and deeper, I would like you to imagine a hallway, and then you could take them into a past life or, whatever other technique you want. But you could just then, because you know that this role model has technically happened within the sacred healing space, then you could, have her walk around, tell you a story, do a reverse metaphor, or have her sit down, meditate even deeper, and segue to whatever you want to work on. Does that help?
It does. When she was in the role model and then stepped out, I asked her, what her role model had to say to her about getting to where she is, basically, and that was an I don't know. It's like, okay. And for me, it's like, when I'm there, there's all these things flooding in, but I'm trying to keep this very client centered, of course. And so, if she doesn't know this, so then I took her back in again to experience what it was like, and took her back out. Does she have anything to say? And I don't know. Okay. Like it was
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So then I was looking back over the training things and the things that I came up with. I was like, maybe if I'd anchored her, maybe that would have been more of a tangible thing for her. She did collect an empowerment symbol, and of course she didn't know what it was for. And I asked her multiple times, throughout the session, does it make sense what it would be, what this empowerment symbol would be for? Where is it? Is it still in your pocket?
Yeah.
And the only thing I got was, I guess, maybe unlocking some things. Like I finally got that. And so I was like, okay. So then when we got back to the role model, I asked about the key, the empowerment symbol. I don't know. So I felt like that was like we would start to make some progress, and then I would get stuck there. And then after the role model thing, we were starting to get towards the end of our time, but it just felt like there needed to be something else. And I didn't even think of the future pacing. That probably would have gone really well.
Yeah.
That route.
So the other thing that I do a little differently is when I put them in, so typically, and again, this is just my method. I'll put them into the role model and they'll experience it. And then I bring them back and I ask them, how do you feel different coming back here than you did when you were in the new version, right?
Okay.
Well, and I'll even ask them things like, is it lighter or darker, more confined or more expansive? Is it heavier or lighter? Just to kind of get them looking in different ways about it, about how it feels. And so then they answer those questions. Then I put them back into the role model again. And the role model is the one, from the perspective of the role model, I have her talk to the former self. So as the role model, as this person who is more fully developed, what would you say to your former self that would be encouraging and helpful for her so she can quickly move into your perspective? And so maybe from the role model perspective, she would be more communicative. But if I had, if I had gone that long with her saying, I don't know, and all these kind of frustrating answers, I would just call her on it. And that's what we would work on. How does it benefit you to always say, I don't know? How is that working in your life? What's the downside of that? Because there's something there that has to be cracked open.
Well, and
is she convincing herself that she's that unconscious or unknowledgeable?
right. And she's focusing on building confidence too, which is the total opposite of I don't know.
Exactly. So if you were your confident self and you did know, what would you know? What would be the answer, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So just pretend you know.
If you did know, what would the answer be? I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it works off most of the time, 99% of the time, they'll realize that they've got to come up with the answer. But I would crack down on that with her. I really would. I would just like, so it would be, secondary gains on the I don't know, and maybe a little discussion of, you're paying good money to do this. You're taking your time and resources, and you have a goal in mind. And I'm noticing that your responses are feeling a little less engaged. And I really want you to get the most benefit from this. And so I'm curious about, why you're holding back, you
Mhm.
know. So I would really explore that with her. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's the part for me too, is that I want her to get her most out of it. And then as soon as
Oh,
we slam on brakes with the I don't knows, I'm like, oh, here's this again. You were doing
exactly.
so great. Here we are again.
Right. Yeah. And you might even, so if she's doing really great and then slams the brakes, use what we call high noticing. Just say, I noticed that you were being very generative and imaginative, and you were coming up with good answers. And all of a sudden, we're back here to where it feels like we've hit a wall. What just happened? What just happened? And let her explain, oh, what just happened. And how I do that is have them, all right, go back to when you were imagining and you were telling me this whole description about your sacred place and all this, and then take me to right where you said you don't know. And what were you feeling right there? What was going on? What changed? I don't know. And so you take her back and go, okay, we're going to do it again. So tell me the description that you just told me. Just go ahead in your mind. Tell me the description, even add more to it. And then bring me up to where I ask you this question and tell me what happens. You know,
Mhm.
um, yeah, you're going to have to really focus on that. But, I mean, imagine how that plays out in her life. What if she's doing that at work? If I had somebody working for me that always said, I don't know,
I
I
think
would,
it's actually more of a trained behavior. She works with abused children and does a lot of work with them and with the police officers. And she has to keep a very straight face as she's going through all of these things. And I think that is literally like that's the mask that she
Mhm.
has to wear at work, because while it's impacting her, her feelings, she can't show that when she's in that position. Um, so I'm assuming that this is a thing that she has kind of put on with herself.
Right. But even like legally, saying I don't know when you do know is lying. She
Mhm.
needs to have
Right.
different language. She needs to say, I'm not at liberty to say,
Mm,
or I plead the fifth, or whatever that is. Because if she's saying, I don't know, and then later they find out that she did, then she's a liar. And
mhm,
so um, in her mind, she might be doing that, or even to compartmentalize between clients and authorities or whatever. But but the effect of that can also be locking down your consciousness.
mhm,
And so, yeah, so it's going to be important to explore that with her,
mhm.
and ask her, is this a fundamental in your line of work? Um, and how does that pertain to the work we're doing here?
Mhm.
Now, she may be embarrassed to have answers, or that there may be some other reason, but and then I would try to talk to her and say, everything that we talk about is confidential, and so this is your opportunity to really have this growth, and personal development. And it's going to be important that we have a rapport and a trust that you can feel free to even give answers that turn out to be wrong. it's okay. We can explore that and correct it later.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's a good, it's tough, but it's a good client for you because you have to get tougher.
It
You
is.
know?
It all came about because we did some things in another training, and she's like, it just doesn't work for me. And I said to her, well, if I worked with you one-on-one, I would use different techniques because your brain works a little differently than how I was teaching to the whole group. And so then she said, okay, well then I want to work together. And then I was like, oh, an analytical one, because I am very visual and kinesthetic, like kind of go between the two, but very visual. And so that's what I relate to really well, So then I was like, oh, all right, I got to study before we, I got to know what my tools are in my toolkit.
Right.
And the first session was really all about just getting her subconscious to like trust everything, to trust that everything was going to be fine. And we did some parts therapy, we did some secondary gains. I didn't even try. The induction was just like a deep relaxation and meditation. We didn't do any deepening because I knew that any of that would probably put her on high guard, and we kept it very like structured, analytical. And then the second session, we did that analytical imp, which I think just totally rounded the corner for her. Even reverse metaphor would not work for her initially. It was
No.
all,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah. But you're really doing her a great service unlocking that because, her consciousness is really getting locked down.
Mm,
And if she can't access that, and I mean, then that'll close her off to intuition, into, communicating with spirits if she even wants to, maybe she doesn't, but being intuitive and, just accessing her imagination, her creativity, but even more importantly, between lives, when she doesn't have, um, the tactile sensations, sight and hearing and stuff, and is totally relying on the more extrasensory perceptions, um, but having her mind locked down like that, she wouldn't be able to navigate.
mhm.
It's not that easy, and it's not as easy as they portray in a lot of movies and books. Uh, you know, you just go from here to there and you're on a conveyor belt and these people come up and they handle everything for you. Yeah, if you can see it, hear it, if you even know what's going on,
Mhm.
right? So, but that'll be really fundamental for her in her spiritual growth to be able to do this, even if that's not her goal. It will be a byproduct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
working with her again tomorrow, so I'm excited to kind of
good.
see what comes up and what we
Yeah,
pick up again and what we've left behind.
right. Yeah. Do you have any other questions so that you could be prepared, or are you ready?
Um,
Ready for her?
I'm feeling pretty ready. I'm curious first what has come up for her between then and now, because it's been about a week and a half, I think. And I know, at least for me, but I'm very intuitive and do a lot of meditation and just clear my space out. And so after a session for me, that whole next week, 2 weeks is like a bombardment of my subconscious and the universe sending signs and me noticing them. And then it's like, oh my gosh, like almost overwhelming with material to journal about and move
Right.
through. So
Right.
I'm curious if anything has shifted for her. And if it has, then that would give us a really good starting point. So, I like to build an idea of what I can do to help her so that I have a little organization on my end, but I don't want to be too attached to it that if it doesn't go that way, I feel lost and frantic.
Yeah. Because it rarely goes the way you're planning.
Everything, right?
Right. All the sessions, it'll just go as it does. But Well, great, great. Do you have any other questions I can answer for you? It sounds like you are all set with her, and these were great questions.
Yeah, I think that's it for today. I wish I could access all my future questions for you.
Well, if you have future questions, we'll just do this again because those were
Okay.
good questions. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.